The story opens with our protagonist Fuya talking to himself, reminding himself that his girlfriend is no longer in this world. She had been standing on a staircase when she slipped and fell to her death. In the aftermath, messages from friends and family flooded his phone. As he gets up, he tells himself in a hollow, desperate tone that there was nothing he could have done for her. In everyone else's eyes, he's just a broken young man mourning the girl he loved. But then we see Fuya's expression, completely dead inside, as he admits the truth to himself. He killed his own girlfriend in cold blood. He lies back down and lets out a long, relieved sigh, one full of comfort rather than grief. This is clearly not someone in mourning. He even tells himself that for the first time in his life, he can finally live like a normal person. Everything had changed the moment he met his gentle, dove-like classmate, Sarah. When he dropped an eraser in class, she picked it up and handed it back to him. One look at her angelic face was enough to make anyone fall for her, and Fuya was no exception. He found himself noticing every small detail about her. She wasn't just popular with the boys in class either. Her reputation had spread through the entire school. So it came as a total shock when Sarah called him out of nowhere and confessed her feelings. Fuya was an ordinary student with nothing particularly special about him, so he could barely believe it. But he accepted her without hesitation, and soon her face was all he could picture, even in the clouds. Things quickly turned strange, though. Whenever he left the house, for school or anything else, Sarah would be there, watching. She started messaging him thousands of times a day, and even blocking her did nothing. She always found a way back into his life. It became unbearable. Then one day, she held a long kitchen knife to his stomach. That was the breaking point. He finally confronted her about her obsessive behavior, raising his voice and telling her he'd had enough, pointing out that she followed him everywhere and had even threatened him with a knife. Her response was chilling. If he had a girlfriend like her, she said, he wouldn't need anything else. With empty, lifeless eyes, she compared herself to a lost wallet. Something so important that, of course, you'd search everywhere until you found it, because that's exactly what Fuya was to her. Terrified after months of being stalked day and night, he told her it was over. He wanted to break up. The moment the words left his mouth, Sarah's eyes seemed to look straight through him. She told him there was no way she'd ever cut ties with him. Even in death, she said, she'd stay by his side. Stunned, Fuya reacted without thinking and shoved her away. That single push became the turning point for both of their lives. Sarah fell to her death. With no witnesses and no evidence tying him to the scene, her death was ruled an accident. For the first time in months, Fuya finally felt like he could rest. That relief didn't last long. Sarah suddenly appears right in front of him, casually asking if he'd like to go on a date. Startled, he turns to find her standing there, looking completely alive and unharmed. He asks how she can be fine after bleeding from the head, and she calmly tells him her life is already over. She doesn't even have feet anymore. When he asks if she's become a ghost, she answers in a hollow voice that she loved him so much, she stayed behind just to see him again. Fuya bolts outside, grabs a bag of salt, and throws a handful at her, screaming at her to leave him alone. She pouts, asking if he really wants to make a mess, and he snaps back, asking if she has any idea what kind of hell she's put him through. His mental health destroyed, relying on pills just to sleep. Hearing this, she sulks for a moment, then apologizes, her voice cracking as she says that even in death, she's still his. Fuya freezes. She tells him that even though he pushed her, even though he killed her, she still loves him more than anything. Being murdered by him changes nothing for her. She adds that the normal rules of the physical world no longer apply to her, so she can be with him anywhere, even in the bathroom. The thought that she might never leave him alone hits him hard. He begs her to go, breaking down and saying he's at his limit. With a blank expression, she tells him she isn't here by choice. She has requests, and he needs to listen to all of them. He tries to shove her away, but his hands pass straight through her body. There's no getting rid of her, and he knows it. He braces for something horrible, but her first request is simple. She wants to go on a date with him. For a moment, seeing her wide, genuine smile, he almost forgets what she really is. They head to a cafe, and Sarah insists he order a specific expensive cake because she wants to see him eat it. When he asks if this is really her wish and whether she can even taste it, he takes a bite. It's an ordinary cake, nothing special. She insists on trying it too, and he offers her a piece. But the moment it touches her, it vanishes, and her face crumples with a heartbreaking sadness before she quickly laughs it off. Fuya notices, though. He can tell she's hurting behind the smile. As he finishes the cake alone, he starts to wonder if he's misjudged her completely. Outside, she thanks him for finally listening to one of her requests, admitting that's why she'd messaged him so relentlessly before. He apologizes for ignoring her, and she brushes it off, saying it's in the past. He can hardly reconcile this version of her, warm, sincere, with the stalker he remembers. Slowly, old feelings for her start to resurface, though he catches himself, remembering that he's the one who killed her. As they spend more time together, Sarah opens up about things he's never heard before, and a fuller picture of who she really is starts to form. He begins to realize he may have judged her too harshly, too quickly. When he asks if she hates him for killing her and leaving her like this, she just smiles gently and says she's happy, glad that even now he's chosen to spend time with her. She was never cruel or vengeful. Being with him mattered more to her than anything else. Then she makes one more request. No matter what, he must never turn himself in. She doesn't blame him, and she was never angry that she died. Guilt crashes over him. It turns out Sarah had never been in a relationship before, and her inexperience led her to push boundaries without realizing it, which is exactly what made her come across as a stalker. As Fuya begins to understand this, Sarah keeps making requests, each one completely ordinary, things any couple might do together. The only difference is that in every memory, every outing, he's the only one who can actually experience it. She can only watch. Weeks later, back at school, he finds a huge display of flowers in her memory. To her classmates, she was beloved. To him, she'd been a stalker. As class ends, Sarah circles him cheerfully and says it's time to go. For the first time, he feels genuinely at ease around her, wondering if it's simply because she can't physically hurt him anymore. As they walk, he asks what she wants for her birthday. She's stunned that he even remembered it. When he asks again, she admits, blushing, that she'd like to hold his hand. He reaches out, letting her try, but he sees it again, that flicker of deep sadness in her eyes. He realizes she'll never be able to hold his hand, or do any of the things a living girl could do with him. As she pretends everything's fine, he quietly registers that she's settling for simply pretending to be his girlfriend. Overwhelmed by what he's done to her, he breaks down crying in the middle of the street. When she asks why, he just keeps walking, telling himself it's all his fault. Days later, he skips school for the first time ever. Sarah notices immediately. He's never done this before. But he ignores her questions and instead asks if spirits can touch other spirits. She tells him yes, she's met a few. He starts climbing a fence. Alarmed, she asks what he's doing, but it's clear he's about to do something drastic. He apologizes for never being able to hold her hand and tells her he regrets everything he did to her. Realizing his intent, she screams at him to stop, insisting she's content with things as they are. But he's already past reasoning. He tells her he can't carry the guilt anymore, that it's dragging him into a darkness he can't escape, that he's been doubling his sleeping pills just to get through the nights. He insists it's all his fault, begs for her forgiveness, and tells her she was never to blame for loving someone as weak as him. Then he does the unthinkable. She lunges to grab him, but it's too late. Fuya wakes up as a spirit. Back on the rooftop, Sarah bumps into him from behind, and he turns to see her sobbing harder than he's ever seen. She calls him an idiot for throwing everything away. He pats her head, telling her that now, finally, they can be together. She cries that she was already happy just being near him, but he insists he was a fool to die for her. Then, in an instant, Sarah's tone shifts. In a flat, hollow voice, she calls him the biggest idiot of all. She admits she was honestly surprised he actually went through with it. As a chill runs down his spine, she asks if she played the part well. Touching him all over, almost in disbelief that it's real, she reveals the truth. She'd been waiting for this exact moment. After she died, she'd racked her brain trying to find a way to touch him again, and this was the only answer she could find. She'd filled him with enough guilt to walk himself straight into the grave. She laughs, calling it the most fun she's ever had. Fuya, voice trembling, asks if she tricked him into all of it. With eyes gone pitch black, she tells him that if he weren't such a hopeless idiot, he would have simply moved on and lived freely instead of drowning in guilt, that throwing his own life away was never necessary. As he mutters that even now he finds her twisted behavior endearing, she reminds him of the truth. It's all his fault, and now the two of them will be bound together in the same realm for eternity. If you enjoyed this story, drop a comment and let me know. More stories like this coming soon. Subscribe and share before you go. See you in the next one.